Your lesson essential question is, how are key details in a historical text connected? So this week we're going to keep looking at connections in key details, but we're focusing on historical texts. Last week we talked about steps in a process. So we talked about recipes, we talked about directions, we talked about science experiments, and we looked at how those details were connected. And we talked about how they were connected through sequence. We know that sequence is the order of the events or the things that needed to happen. A historical text is a text that tells us something that happened in history. So it might tell us about a person from history. It might tell us about an event. It could tell us about a place. So a historical text is another type of informational text that gives information about a person or an event or a place in history. Let's talk about how those events are connected. They could be connected through sequence, using those sequence words, or they could also be connected through cause and effect. So cause and effect tells us something happened because of something else. Let's talk a little bit more about historical events first. Some texts tell about historical events, which are important events that happened in the past. So you might hear the word history in there. Sometimes these events are connected. To connect means to fit two or more things together. Events in a history text can follow each other in the order they happened. First, next, and last. So that's sequence. We'll be looking for a lot of sequence words this week. We'll also be using our sequence words in our writing. They can also show how one event caused another. So we'll look at sequence and we'll also look at cause and effect. So we're going to be looking at things happening because of other things. Let's take a look at the sequence of the events in these three pictures. So what is the little girl doing in this first picture? You probably said the girl's building a gift out of sticks. So first, the girl built a gift out of sticks. What did she do next? Next, she wrapped the gift in wrapping paper. What did she do last? She gave the gift to her friend. So it would be silly if we told this story out of order. It would be silly if we said she wrapped the gift before we told the people that she built the gift. It's important that events go in order. So we've been talking about key details in informational texts and how they're connected in specific ways. Those key details are our most important details. Last week we talked about sequence. We talked about the steps in a process, like recipes, directions, experiments, and how they were ordered through sequence. Well, historical events also are often ordered through sequence. So we're looking for words like first, next, after that, last, then, in the beginning. We might see times or days or dates, especially in a historical text. We're going to see specific dates. So historical texts are often ordered in sequence. We'll also see some cause and effect, so events that happen because of other events. We're going to look for words like because of, or caused, or as a result of. And those are also words that we're going to be using in our writing. So we might say that when you got home from the bus stop, you were very wet because of the rain. Okay, so we're saying things happened because of something else. So step one is we want to read the informational text, and then we want to identify how the key details relate to each other. So again, this week we're going to be looking at cause and effect and sequence. Okay, then we'll record our key details in a graphic organizer showing how they're related. So if you're choosing to take notes, you might have a graphic organizer that looks like this one right here. And then we're going to use those cause and effect words and those compare and contrast words and those sequence words to explain the text and their connections. So this week we're going to be looking at these cause and effect words and these sequence words, really. So let's read a new flag for a new nation. We're going to be reading about how we got the American flag. And we're going to talk about the connections in this text. A long time ago, in the 1700s, the United States was not a country yet. Do you see any sequence words in that first sentence? You probably identified a date in the 1700s. People lived in 13 colonies. The colonies belonged to England. The people in the colonies wanted to be free. They decided to fight for freedom. So why did they fight for freedom? They fought for freedom because they wanted to be free. So there's some cause and effect in this text. The people needed a flag that would stand for all 13 colonies. General George Washington wanted a flag that everyone would recognize. It would unite the 13 colonies. Where would this flag come from? One story says that first General George Washington went to see Betsy Ross. So what did George Washington do first? He went to see Betsy Ross. So what did he do first? Went to see Betsy Ross. She had a sewing shop in Pennsylvania. He asked Betsy Ross if she would make a flag for the 13 colonies. She said yes. Betsy Ross made a flag with the 13 stars and 13 stripes. Each star and stripe stood for a colony. The flag that Betsy Ross made was an important symbol in the fight for freedom. It helped the colonists feel proud. Soon the colonies would become one country. And I see a sequence word here, soon. The new flag would stand for the United States of America. So this text told us the order of the events. So in the 1700s, first General George Washington went to see Betsy Ross. Soon the colonies became one country. But we also have some cause and effect in here too. I want to ask you a question, and I want you to tell someone in the room the answer to this question. So this can be a person, it can be a pet, it can be a stuffed animal. I want you to find a sentence that tells why Betsy Ross made the flag. Okay, you probably said because George Washington asked if she would make the flag. So there's some cause and effect in this text also. You're going to be using this text tomorrow for some writing, but today you're just doing a discussion post with it. So think about the connections that we talked about today and go ahead and answer your discussion post. You can answer your discussion post through writing, you can answer it through video or voice recording.